Hello friends, and welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are going to walk through our Proven Winners signature garden here at Creekside Nursery and talk about the flower plans that I have for this coming season of 2025. Yesterday we walked through and we did kind of a recap of what 2024 looked like here in the garden rather. So if you missed that video, make sure you check it out. I will have it linked so that you can see that. This is the first full year that the garden has gone through existence, and we had a lot of success. We learned a lot, of course, from our first year here at the garden, and so I'm going to just kind of walk you through and give you an idea of what we're going to be doing here in the signature garden. And I do this because iron sharpens iron, and I have some definite plans that I know, okay, we're going to do this, and then other things I'm still kind of up on the air about what I want to do. So I would love to hear some ideas from you, and maybe hopefully this will give you some inspiration for your garden. I understand that not everybody has a signature garden, but if you find one plant or one idea that you can take away from this video, then this is a success for the video. That is why we do these videos, is to educate and inspire and just inform everybody about what it's like to garden here in North Carolina, a Zone 8A. So without further ado, here we go. We're just going to kind of start from the front and work to the back. Of course, here we have on the front, when you enter into the garden, we have these two raised beds. And this provides a great opportunity to really do some fun showcasing of lots of flower power. We want to grab people's attention when they come in. And so this year, in the raised beds here in front of the Sprinter boxwoods, we're going to be highlighting Supertunia Saffron Finch. This is a gorgeous, pure, soft yellow petunia. It is a true yellow. It is stunning. It is beautiful. And so we want to really highlight that. So we will have that mass planting from the Sprinter boxwoods down here to the Dry Creek bed. So that is that. Now, if you are a fellow Southerner, or if you're in a warm climate like we are, where you have heat and humidity, a major tip that I have for you is get your petunias in the ground as early as you possibly can. The sooner you can get them in the ground, the better they're going to do through the heat and the humidity of the summer. For us, because petunias are very cool tolerant, they actually do really well in cool temperatures. We can plant our petunias. Of course, you have to watch the weather. You don't want to have a hard freeze, but end of March, beginning of April. My last frost date is April the 15th, and I can do that before. We planted petunias early last year, and they did amazing. They actually get really nice and tight and compact, and like I said, those roots really get really well established before the heat of the summer hits. So get your Supertunias in the ground as soon as you possibly can. And then what we are going to do for the spring, I got a little ahead of myself, I guess, for the spring. So before we plant the Saffron Finch here, we have 2,000 of the Beaujolais tulip blend from our friends at Color Blends are planted here in the garden. So we have the same tulip blend in the raised beds on the front and the back, the 4 inside flower beds here that hold our annuals around the fountain, and then in the very back where the glitters and glows viburnums are. So we have 2,000 of these gorgeous tulips. It is a blend. That is what I learned from last year. We did a blend, but we planted the bulbs individually, and while the flowers themselves were gorgeous, without a doubt, it just looked a little sparse. It wasn't really thick and full like I wanted it to. So we increased the numbers, and then we used the 9-inch power planter auger, and we put like 4 tulips per hole. So we're going to have really like nice, more compacted impact with that. With the tulips. So you're going to have more of a mass planting, and it's going to give a thicker, fuller look. At least that is the goal, right? So we've got 2,000 of the Beaujolais, and that's, of course, those soft yellows and the pinks and the purples. Really excited. And then down the center between the boxwoods and the little lime punch hydrangeas, I have got Globe Master Allium. Of course, Globe Master Alliums I think are like the industry standard for alliums. Of course, nice and tall, big, huge purple heads on them that they will just be gorgeous. And they're very slender, so that's why I was able to put them here, because I don't want anything thick to impede the growth of my boxwoods and my little lime punches. And so those will go, they're in, they are growing, and we are going to try to leave them in, because your alliums can be perennials. I think they're hardy up to like a zone 9, we're a zone 8A. So as long as they perform well this spring, we're gonna leave them and see how they do next year. I mean, gardening is nothing but one big science experiment. So let's just experiment, let's see how they do, but we're going to plan on leaving them. And then of course, both beds are planted the exact same. So they have that balance between them. And so everything is very balanced and symmetrical. Now, we are going to, so fast forward, once the tulips are done, because tulips for us are an annual, and here in the south in zone 8A, they will not reliably come back. So tulips for us are an annual. Once the tulips are done, we pull them out, and then we'll do the saffron finch. This year, I'm going to leave this open. The Globe Master is a later bloomer, and so the tulips will be done when the Globe Masters bloom, but that's fine. I mean, that's not a problem, because we're going to leave them, and that's all that's going to go in here. We are not going to plant any kind of annuals going down between the hydrangeas and the boxwoods. I need my boxwoods and my hydrangeas to really thicken up and get nice and full, because at maturity, we planted them so that the boxwoods will be a nice hedge and the hydrangeas will be a hedge, and they will just kiss each other. So that is the plan. No annuals down the center. And then here in the front, because my hydrangeas are growing, yay, right? We want them to grow and get nice and thick and be a beautiful highlight in this flower bed. I am going to come back through like last year, and I'm going to do a mixed planting here in front. Now last year, if you remember from yesterday's video, we did a lot of different annuals in here, and some of them got really big, like the Mystic Illusion Dahlia and the Golden Dreams Coleus. And they started at the end of the season to kind of impede and overtake my little lime punches. I don't want that to happen this year. So what the plan is, and I don't have this nailed down, this is one of those things that I will just kind of have to play with, is that I am going to use the new Coleus, the Mini-Me Chartreuse. Oh my gosh, y'all. Love this Coleus. It is tight. It is compact. It is chartreuse green yellow. It is stunning. And what I can do is I can easily come through and plant them between the hydrangeas, but well forward. So essentially, I can plant it here because they will get nice and thick. And like I said, I don't want to impede the growth of my hydrangeas. I want that sun to get all around them so they get nice and thick. So I'm going to drastically use a lot less annuals this year than I did last year. So I know that the Mini-Me Chartreuse is going to go in here. And I love the Super Bean and Pink Cashmere. And last year we put them on the corners. I don't know, y'all. This is the hard part. Like, I love it, but I'm afraid if I put it in the 4 annual beds on the inside that it may spread too much. And then when we come to cut the grass and trim and everything, it may be in the way. So I may do the Pink Cashmere again on the corners because it was just so beautiful, but I don't know. So this is where I have ideas, but I'm not set in stone. Of course, I'm going to use the Virtuoso Pinkerific Dahlia. Oh my gosh, y'all. It is gorgeous. And this is one of those things, this is one of those plants that's going to be beautiful in the spring. Heat of the summer, it may slow down and the foliage is going to be there, but you're not probably going to get a lot of blooms. At least we didn't this year. But when the cool of the fall hits again, oh my gosh, they explode. So I know I'm going to use that Pinkerific Dahlia in the garden somewhere. And then the Aromagica Purple Heliotrope. Y'all, this is one of those plants that at the end of the season, it was spectacular. It is really tight. I never deadheaded it. It has really dark foliage. The foliage is gorgeous. The bugs didn't like it. The pollinators went nuts over it. Had it in the test garden right in front of the pergola. Had the mini-me chartreuse behind it, and it was stunning. I mean, spectacular. So definitely going to use that somewhere in the garden as well. Just haven't quite figured out exactly where we're going to go. All right, so let's go with what I do know what we're going to do. All right, so the fountain, right? So the fountain, of course, is dead center of the whole entire garden, and it is quite the highlight and the centerpiece, especially, you know, right now it's winterized, but when it is going, it is just beautiful. So we're going to continue with more Supertunias, and we're going to use the Supertunia Tiara Pink, or Pink Tiara, either way. And so we're going to do a mass planting, so the entire bed will be nothing but that Tiara Pink petunia. It is new this year, and it has that pink with that white in it. It is really pretty. So I think between going with the saffron finch up front and then the tiara pink, those are very kind of, and then of course using that pinkerific, the pink cashmere, those are very soft colors, and they're not the super hot, bold colors. So I think that's going to be kind of like my palette this year. So all of my annuals will kind of have to like stay within that color range. So for example, probably not going to be using a lot of reds, not going to be using a lot of oranges in the gardens, but purples and blues and whites and the chartreuse and like some darker, deep dark purple, whether that is the purple fountain grass, because y'all know I do love me some purple fountain grass. And then I am going to use, I already know, I'm going to do the Wicked Witch, Color Blaze Wicked Witch Coleus. Huge fan of Color Blaze Coleus. Those are going to go inside here with the 4 beds, right? Because we plant the 4 interior beds all the same. That way it brings lots of cohesiveness to the garden. And so I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that. I don't know if I'm going to do clumps or if I'm going to do like a kind of a line in the middle. I'm not sure on that, but I do know that I'm going to use that Color Blaze Wicked Witch with that nice dark foliage, that chartreuse green on the edge. Really pretty. And so, yeah, so we know we're going to do that. Then coming here in the back with the Glitters and Glows flower beds. So on the very back side of the garden, we have these 2 beds that are symmetrical, and they have all that glitters and glows viburnums. These are obviously deciduous viburnums, and they will ultimately get to be like 4 to 5 feet tall and wide. So in the meantime, while we're waiting on them to reach their maturity, we go ahead and plant annuals between them. So this year, I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, Jenny, what is a plant that is not going to get too big? So I thought for a second last year, maybe putting a purple fountain grass or 2 purple fountain grasses between them, because how pretty would that be? And I was like, that purple fountain grass at the end of the season, it can get really big and it could start to impede the growth of my viburnums. So I don't want that. So I want something low growing that is manageable, but that will not impede the growth of the shrubs, because impeding the growth of the shrubs, you've got to have the sun, right? So you've got to have the sun that gets all the way around that shrub, because if you have another plant that's growing into it, then the sun can't get to it, and obviously you're not going to get growth there. So what we're going to do is we are going to use the Campfire Marshmallow Biden. And this is such a cute, dainty, pure white flower. It reminds you very much of like a little mini daisy. We had it in the backyard of the house in our 4 backyard beds last year, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how well that plant did, because Bidens are historically very cool weather plants. And so we planted it in the backyard last year in March when it was still quite cool. And my thought is that when the heat hits, it's just going to kind of peter out and it's just going to go away, and then we'll pull it out and we'll plant lantana. That thing just kept on going. It was fantastic. And so the Bidens are nice and low, like I said, with those little sweet little white daisy-like flowers on them. So I'm thinking I'll have to go back and look on the measurements, like as far as like how big they get, but definitely I can do 3, maybe 4. We'll see. And that's where I just have to kind of like rein myself in and not go crazy over here. And so the campfire marshmallows will be a solid planting between the All That Glitters and Glows viburnums. Now, this past year, we did here in the nook, as we call it, the nook had the Senorita Blanca Cleome. And y'all, we're just going to keep it simple and we're going to do it again. It was so unbelievably gorgeous, low maintenance, easy. I mean, you can't get a better plant. It just was spectacular. So you can see we still haven't pulled out the old plants. So basically from the base of this poplar all the way around up to where we have the Calycanthus, the Aphrodite, we will go ahead and replant those Senorita Blanca Cleome. They will get nice and big. They are just beautiful. So we're going to do that again. Now over here, this is where the tree fell during Helene and completely destroyed the flower bed. We do have the Aphrodite here. We lost 2 of the Fairy Trail Bride hydrangeas in here. So what I think we're going to do is we still have 2 fairy trails here, and we're going to probably, I'm thinking we're going to kind of dig them up, maybe put them a little bit closer together. I don't know what we're going to do, but we've got to obviously rework this area right here because the tree absolutely destroyed it when it fell down. But coming through here on the other side of the Midnight Express forest pansy, we have a beautiful line. Yes, it is beautiful, underneath the trees here going along the creek, because our goal has forever been to expand the gardens here at the nursery. So we want to expand gardens out and just develop these fun gardens. So what we're going to do under there, we're going to clean it up, right? So we've got to obviously come through here and limb up some of the trees. We've got to kind of clean it up just a little bit. But underneath here, we are going to plant a mass planting of the Tough Stuff hydrangeas. So Tough Stuff hydrangeas, they are a serrata, a lace cap. They are a native hydrangea. They do really well here in the South. And let's just be honest, I got my main inspiration from Mimi's garden. Last year, I mean, they were unbelievable. They'll ultimately get to be in that like 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. So we're just going to come in here and do a mass planting, maybe even come behind here where the fairy trails are, and then come behind the Midnight Express and then wrap it around. I think we have 9, so I'm thinking that we're going to do 9 of those Tough Stuffs in here. And yeah, so gorgeous. They're pH dependent, so they could be pink, they could be blue. Mimi actually had pinks, blues, and purples all on the same plant. It was unbelievable. It was the most gorgeous thing ever. So we're going to be doing that. We also have, the goal is for this year at least, because if you can see, right, this hill, the front side of the hill is our property. And the ultimate goal is to go ahead and expand the gardens up into the, up onto the hill, because this is a perfect spot to do a woodland garden, right? And fun little thing, I don't think we've ever showed y'all back here, so y'all get a little sneak peek back here. There is an old road bed. Brent and I use it for our walking path, but there's an old road bed right here. And this road bed will go through, we'll go ahead and walk it. It cuts through the lower part of the hill. And is this just not like the prime location for a woodland garden? It would be very natural, not formal whatsoever. You have beautiful oak trees, you've got poplar trees, and not that we would go crazy like up the hill. Keep it kind of low so that people can enjoy the plants from a distance. It is a little bit steep, and we don't, we let people stay on the path, but to enjoy those plants from afar. But in order to do that, obviously we've got a ton of work to do. because this has been left natural for as long as I know. I mean, 50 plus years. And so if you're familiar with the woods in the southeast, you know that nature reclaims itself. And so we have got briars coming up, that thick vine right there, that is a grapevine. So we've got to come in here this season, and my main goal this year is to take from the roadbed down to the grass and get that under control. So to come in here and get the briars under control, pull out the grapevine because it gets up into the trees, get rid of that. And then as we continue on around here, you might be able to see that we have somehow, we've got ivy, English ivy in here. And not that we planted it, but either the birds brought it in or somebody a long time before us threw some ivy down here. It's not horrible, but we definitely need to keep it under control because this is something that does not belong here. It is not a native plant, and it's growing all underneath in this area right here, and then it's starting to go up this little tree, which the tree is not that big of a deal because it doesn't have much of a life expectancy because it's what I call a junk tree. So we need to come in here and really work on this season maintaining these lovely briars, the ivy, and so that way maybe this time next year we can be in here and plant, and we can begin working on this space, get everything kind of cleaned up in here because it's such a fun area, and it is right here beside the pond. So we do have a pond. We've had the pond longer than we have had the nursery, and it is a spring-fed pond. So right here at the base of the holly tree is where the spring is, and so it feeds the pond. We do have a pipe down there at the end so that it flows and doesn't overflow, and we always constantly have a trickle of water going through that pipe. It is a clay bottom pond. Like when I say this is a natural pond, this is a natural pond. And we did the pond out of necessity to maintain the drainage and so that we could use this property, because this spring is so prolific that if we didn't have the pond, the entire garden center area would just be like a marshy, mucky mess, as it was when we got the land 20-something years ago. So it has always been my dream, our dream, to develop gardens around the pond. Now, the pond does need some work. All of the stones that you see around the pond are from here. None of these stones were bought. They are natural. So the folks who own this property 50, 75, 100 years ago, they used this spring as like a cold, what do you call it? You know, instead of like a refrigerator, because they didn't have refrigerators, like a cold well. I can't remember what the term is. Anyway, they used that here, and they had it built here, and then they gathered all of the rocks for that. So when we were digging out the pond, we found all of these rocks, and some of them are quite massive. Several years ago, we came through, drained the pond, kind of took out some of the debris in the bottom, scraped it up a little bit, and then put the rocks back. Over time, some of them have fallen back down into the pond just because of erosion. Wild animals come into the pond to drink. They've kind of slid down in there. So the plan is come after the signature experience. So the signature experience is at the end of June. Once the signature experience is done, because we want everything to look just right for the signature experience, we're going to come in. We're going to drain the pond and just get a pump and just pump out the water. Drain the pond, come through, excavate it, get it a little deeper, get all these rocks, pull them back up. Maybe we expand the pond a little bit. We don't want the footprint to be massive, but we could certainly go ahead and expand it a little bit if we wanted to. But basically get the rocks back out, get them pulled up, and then just let it fill back up. At that point, what I want to do is to have at least a nice border of a bed that goes around the pond. all the way around, because obviously we don't want people walking up to the edge of the pond and, you know, going for a swim. So the flower bed, of course, will help kind of be just a physical barrier for people. And, you know, most people are just fine with it, but it'll be a nice physical barrier for people to observe the pond from a distance. Also, because of the way that the lay of the land is, here you can see this is going to be definitely going to be more shaded area, right? So here and then even up this area is going to be definitely mostly shade. Be some morning sun, but once these hardwood trees flush out, then the summer sun is definitely shaded in the afternoon. And we actually have moss growing right here, so that kind of just gives you an idea that it definitely is shaded. But then as you come around to the red bud and then the Jane magnolia here, this whole area definitely gets lots of sun. So within the flower beds of, you know, the pond, you can have a whole variety of plants. You could have full shade, part shade. We can have bog plants. We can have water plants. We can have all sorts of things. So super, super excited about that. So you'll stay tuned for that project in the summertime. But like I said, we're doing it once the signature experience is over, and then it has to be wrapped up by like October, because there's going to be a lot of excavating and making mess around here. And because we have the fescue grass, we reseed in October. So from the point of the signature experience, we can, quote, tear up everything here, put it out into the field on that way, so you're not going to be, the signature garden is not going to be affected. So everything can be over here and messed up, the equipment and everything. So I'm sure it will absolutely destroy the grass. So come October, we'll have plenty of time to come back through, regrade the land, put down fresh grass seed, and all will be well. So that is the timeline for the pond renovation. We had talked about doing some other fun things with the pond. We will see how that goes. You know, people have said over time about, you know, maybe you could put some sort of like fountain water feature, you know, like a spray in the pond, which would be very cool. We could do some sort of like waterfall that comes from the hill down into the pond. Just lots and lots of options. And so Jerry and I are just going to sit on that and think about that and kind of dream and plan and work on that together. So that will be our big project for the summer, will be the pond renovation with that. I do not want to mess up my Jane magnolia. So Jane is right here. This is a deciduous magnolia. She is an early, like a tulip magnolia, and blooms, oh my gosh, just stunning. So she's been here for 4 or 5 years, so she will definitely stay. And then this is a rising sun red bud right here. We just planted that this past season, so I hope that it too will stay. If we have to dig it up, it won't be as big of a deal because the root system's not as advanced. So that is kind of the idea as far as the big projects. And then what we will also be doing with the 4 exterior shrub perennial beds is just maintaining those, see what is thriving. Like we have the yin and yang viburnums right here. They're doing great. They have had great growth this year. I did lose an Invincible ruby, hydrangea right here. So I have a little bit of a hole. If I want to put something there, I certainly can. And then our sweet friends at Color Blends were so kind, and they sent me an email. I had literally gotten, I think, the last of the tulips in the ground, and they were like, "Hey, we love what you're doing. Your content's great. We're so glad that you're using Color Blends. We'd love to send you some bulbs that do really well in your zone, if that's okay." And I was like, "Of course." So they sent me, after Christmas, they sent me a total of 400 daffodils that will do great here in the South. These are old heirloom varieties, so I have those I need to plant. And then they sent me 500 of the snowflakes. So I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to do this or not. I haven't talked to Jerry, but I'm going to wait and see. but I was thinking about putting the snowflakes in the shrub perennial beds. Basically, that would be 25 holes per bed. And so that will give us some really pretty spring flowers here in the perennial shrub beds. And the snowflakes for us are perennials. So that would be a really great thing. And then when they're not blooming, it just looks like a green grass. So I'm thinking that that's what I'm going to do in these beds. And of course I have those now, so those need to be planted. And then we haven't talked about, we're almost done. We haven't talked about this bed over here. This is the creek bed that has shrubs in it. It has been through multiple floods this year, so it is has been through the ringer for sure. And so earlier, gosh, in November, I came through and I planted 100 of the gigantic star daffodils through here. So we have got 100 gigantic star daffodils. My favorite daffodil. It is huge, it is beautiful, it is fragrant, it is lovely. So we will have those throughout here. They go all the way from the base of the big poplar tree all the way up to the next big poplar tree. So they're more here in the front. And then this summer, what we're going to do here in the back to bring in a border and just to kind of fill some things in while we're waiting on the shrubs to grow and be happy is we're going to do the Senorita Rosalita Cleome. So that is that pink Cleome. We had it in the interior bed this year. We're going to move it over and bring it over here and use it as a nice big backdrop and kind of fill in between these shrubs while we're waiting on them to grow. So that, I think, is it that I know. My main thing that I have to get focused on and really plan is my mixed bed for the raised beds and then get my design for the 4 interior beds. That's a big project. So I've got to nail it down, at least get the plants together, because we've got to get those ordered and think about what I'm going to do there. So I would love some suggestions. If you got some ideas, let me know. As always, we hope you found this fun, informative, and inspirational. Y'all have an amazing day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.